Hello, and welcome to episode 40 of Sarastro's Star Wars painting series. In this episode, we're going to paint the Snowtroopers from Fantasy Flight Games' Star Wars Imperial Assault. When painting the Snowtroopers, I'll be aiming to capture the subtle variations in the shades of white, and we'll be using some weathering to create some rough gradients to add further interest to the figures. Let's take a look at the painting stages. I've chosen to prime the Snowtroopers in white, followed with a coat of Nuln Oil to provide some initial black lining and to shade the eyes. We can then apply the base colours, and I'll be doing some wet blending on the fabric to create a rough gradient suggestive of some weathering. I'll then be applying a black shade to the gun and a more delicate shade to all of the pale areas of the figure to sharpen the detail. This already results in a good tabletop standard, which means there would be nothing wrong with skipping the highlighting stage if you wish. We'll follow that with some optional highlights, mostly to push the contrast on the shiny parts of the outfit. Our finishing touches will include painting the coloured details on the backpack and chest, as well as providing a snowy base. Let's begin. Because I'm going to batch paint the Snowtroopers, I'm going to first mount the whole unit using some white tack or poster putty. After priming the Snowtroopers in white, I've chosen to provide an initial overall coat of Nuln Oil. This is just to bring some initial depth to the recesses and provide some black lining, some of which we might choose to work around when providing the base colours. I'm also using this as an opportunity to blacken the eyepieces. Once that's done, we're ready to begin applying the base colours. I'm going to begin by painting the areas of fabric by mixing some Mechanicus Standard Grey into some Screamin Skull in a roughly 5:1 ratio. And because I'm going to be doing some wet blending, I'm going to thin this with a few drops of glaze medium. I'm creating this tone in two separate wells in the palette, as I'll be darkening one of them in a moment. I'm now going to darken one of the mixes with an equal amount of Steel Legion Drab and Black. This will form the darker, more weathered portion of the clothing, and you may wish to moderate your mix depending on how dark you want the effect to be. I'm going to start with the lighter tone, which I'm first using to paint the arms. I'm then taking this about 2/3 of the way down the back of the trench coat. I'm now going to apply the darker tone to the lower section of the coat before roughly blending them together. The blending can afford to be a little scrappy since we're looking for a somewhat weathered look. We can also paint the underside of the coat with the darker tone. I'm now switching back to the lighter tone, which I'm using to paint the upper 2/3 of the legs. And I'm now applying the darker tone to the feet, then blending it upwards along the legs. For For the brighter, more shiny sections of the outfit, I'm going to mix in a roughly equal measure of white into the lighter tone. First, I'm transferring some of the paint into a separate well so I can reuse the original tone later on. And I'm now mixing in my white. It may take 2 or 3 layers to build up a nice solid tone. Finally, I'm using some German grey for the gun, as well as the lower strip on the backpack. With the base colours complete, we're ready to add some shade. We're now going to create quite a delicate shade using a 3-to-1 mix of Nuln Oil and Seraphim Sepia, and around 10 parts of medium. I'm then using this to shade the entire miniature. Notice that I'm spreading the shade quite thinly, and I'm mopping up any excess from places like the top of the helmet. This should provide a subtle sepia tint and bring a little definition to the ridged details on the outfit. Next, I'm going to use some neat Nuln Oil for the areas of black. Once dry, our Snowtrooper is already looking good enough to game with, provided we paint the base. If you wish to take things further, join me now for the highlights. I'm going to begin by using the original Screamin Skull and grey base tone to provide a few simple highlights to the areas of fabric. I'm only providing a few very thin highlights to the back of the trench coat so as not to destroy our weathered gradient. Here I'm using a clean brush to smooth the edges of the highlight. I'm now going to begin working on the shiny areas, beginning with the pale base tone we applied earlier. This first highlight can cover most of the surface except for the darkened joins and recesses. As usual, I'm building the tone up in a couple of layers. I'm now going to create my upper highlight tone by mixing a little Yriel Yellow into a generous amount of white. I'm then using this yellowy off-white to brighten my base tone in a few stages. I'm paying particular attention to the eye area where we want to create a nice sharp contrast. For the dome of the helmet, I'm placing the circular area of highlight, then working round the edge with a damp brush to feather out the transition. I'm now applying the pure yellowish off-white for my final highlight. We're now ready to add some finishing touches. I'm now going to paint some of the small coloured details on the outfit, starting with some Mechanicus standard grey, which I'm using for two small panels on the back. We can use the white highlight tone to neaten the edges if need be. I'm now using some Mephiston Red to colour one of the small strips on the back, as well as the row of buttons on the chest. And I'm using some black for the other strip on the back. Next, I'm going to provide an even grey tone for the base before adding my snow effect. This isn't essential, however. For the snow, I've chosen to simply cover the base with Citadel's Valhallan Blizzard. I'm also going to brush a few loose pieces of snow onto the lower rim of the trench coat, as well as the boots and the legs. I'm going to finish the painting off by painting the rim of the base black. And I'm using some German grey for the two small vertical strips we can see on the lower backpack. Once the snow is completely dry, we can go ahead and protect the figures with some matte varnish. And I've chosen to apply some gloss varnish, which I've thinned with a roughly equal measure of water, to the shiny sections of the outfit. And this completes the Snowtroopers. Thank you for watching. If you're enjoying the series, then do please let me know with a thumbs up, and please be sure to subscribe. You can also find links to my social media accounts in the video description below. As always, my very special thanks go out to the amazing patrons who are financing this series. Join me again soon as we continue painting miniatures from Star Wars Imperial Assault. Happy painting!